Story 1. I wasted time worrying about people who never spared me a single thought. Story 2. I should have left earlier. Abuse in any form is not okay. Story 3. I was not driving when my first wife and I were in an accident. She died and I survived. That will always carry a weight of regret, but life works in strange ways. I eventually remarried, and through my current wife I discovered a passion I would not have found otherwise. My life, career, and community now revolve around a sport I had not even known until I met her. It is hard to reconcile both truths. I lost someone I loved, yet everything I cherish now came from the path that loss set me on. Story 4. My biggest regret is playing World of Warcraft when it first came out. That game changed my whole life for better and for worse. Story 5. My heroin addiction. For a long time, I thought it had utterly destroyed my life. However, it molded me into the strong, independent woman I am today. I would not be who I am without the struggles I faced during active addiction. Story 6. I regret not saying no to toxic people earlier in life. It hurt at the time, but it taught me boundaries and self-respect I would never have otherwise. Story 7. I stayed with my girlfriend for too long in high school. We should have broken up after a year. Story 8. I don't normally regret things. I fully embrace the decisions I make in the moments they are presented, along with their consequences. But there is one regret I hold vividly. It was the last phone conversation I had with my dad. He worked overseas, so we only got to see each other a couple of weeks each year. He loved our family dearly and missed us growing up. But whenever he was with us, he did everything he could to enjoy our time together and love us. The last time he called me, I was in college, exhausted from exams, stress, and general college chaos, and I told my dad, "Hey, I'm super busy at the moment. I'll call you back later." He was cool with it. That was the last time I spoke with him. He passed away in a sudden car accident a couple of days later. I never returned the call. It's been almost a decade since, and I still relive it in my head every day. I used to be reserved and shy. As the traumatized second-generation Asian immigrant kid I didn't know how to express love in a healthy way. Since then, I tell everyone close to me that I love them and care about them. I hug people when I can. I spend every moment with people sincerely, and I always return any missed calls right away. You never know. You can disappear in a blink of an eye. Love as much as you can when you can. It has made me the person I am today, more fully appreciating the moment and making every effort to love in the present. Story 9. This may sound horrible, but I have deep regrets about my oldest son's biological father. I love my son with the fierceness of a lioness and would do anything for him, as I would for all my children, but I regret so much that his biological father is who he is. During our relationship, he was abusive and addicted to drugs and alcohol. He sabotaged my birth control, and I became pregnant as a result. He desperately wanted a baby. I had just turned 20 and was not ready for a baby or the responsibility of raising one. The only good thing he ever did was leave when our son was a baby. Story 10. In hindsight, it was an awful idea. It felt very cult-like and was far too much work, required by the school as well as the sorority's additional requirements. It normalized mean girl behavior. I never really fit in but tried for years anyway because I was desperate to have girlfriends instead of male friends. I made a lot of good memories but many more bad ones. I probably would not have tried tripping, become a heavy marijuana user, adopted my current cats, or become best friends with my closest friend. I have no idea where I would be. Story 11. I moved to London for my ex-wife, but she left me 4 months later. I regret marrying her, but it actually helped my career a lot. Story 12. My shitty childhood made me very receptive to others' emotions and able to help others who feel the same. Story 13. When I was a child, I did not finish a chore quickly enough, and that led to me being physically abused as punishment. One positive outcome is that I can now see my father clearly as a violent, pathetic man instead of idolizing him as I did before. Story 14. It's wild how much time I've wasted stressing over people who never even thought twice about me. Story 15. Overuse of psychedelics gave me severe dissociation and social anxiety. It also saved my life and helped me realize who I was inside. Story 16. While working at public storage, I dealt with some very rude customers and I regret not standing up for myself. More importantly, I was caught in the middle of an armed robbery. It was a traumatic experience, but it taught me that life is precious and made me less afraid to try new things. Story 17. My last long relationship was horrendous and left me scarred, but I love where I am in life now. Story 18. I used to waste time in front of my computer playing games and exploring Linux and Windows. Now I earn a six-figure salary working in cybersecurity. I am in my early 30s, I own my house, and I have a lovely girlfriend. Story 19. My first fiancé ended our engagement and moved back to Australia. I became severely depressed and quit my job just before the economy collapsed after the September 11, 2001 attacks. I worked in bars for several years. During my final week at one of those bars, I met the woman I would marry. We are now divorced and she became the mother of my daughters. I would not have my children if my first fiancé had not ruined everything. Story 20. I regret the situation I put myself in that led to my being raped. It was not my fault, but I was not making good choices, and had I been, it might not have occurred. It awakened me in a way that likely would not have happened otherwise. I did a lot of inner work, met my now husband, who is amazing, and we have 2 children. I do not know what my life would look like today if that had not happened. Story 21. My relationship with my ex-girlfriend brought us both to where we are today. We are happily married to other people, but sometimes I wish the relationship had never happened. Story 22. I did not have any romantic and sexual experiences in high school or college. I have a wonderful partner now and we have been going steady, but having all of your firsts with the same person in your mid-20s is both fun and not fun. Story 23. I dated a man who turned out not to be great, but his mother was looking for someone to work for her. She hired me and I worked there for 15 years. I was laid off in January, but it was still a good job to have. Story 24. My driving under the influence. I'm 6 years sober now and happier than I was when I was drinking. Story 25. It involved a foreign country. I should not have made that choice. Story 26. Dating my ex wasted the last years of my 20s, but without her I would not be sober, nicotine-free, and back in school. Story 27. Getting back with the one who got away taught me that I had wasted much of myself on a plain old man. I sacrificed my mental health during that time. Now I am in a better place and know that no one and nothing are worth my peace of mind. In the future, someone will have to be nearly perfect for me to even consider getting involved. I am okay with that. Story 28. My upbringing was difficult. I had a terrible childhood, but I am extremely blessed now. Story 29. I had a job I hated, but it got me a qualification that led to my current better job. Story 30. My last job left me with bad memories, but I never would have realized how important it is to do things with patience without that experience. Story 31. Worth is measured by standards. It is very hard to have standards if you grow up feeling less than. Without an abusive partner with a similar upbringing whom I thought I deserved, I would not have had the courage to be with my soulmate. Story 32. Being totally selfish and self-focused, prioritizing my peace, happiness, life, challenges, family, and career. Me and only me. Story 33. I dated a sociopathic con man. He became the main character in my first novel and I killed him at the end. Story 34. Driving under the influence led me to meet my children's mother. My relationship with her and that incident ruined my life. I have 2 amazing daughters because of it. I would do it all over again for those girls. Story 35. After breaking up with my ex, I moved so I would not be where I am now. Story 36. My mother is a narcissist and I let her back into my life. I had a horrible childhood, but I got away from her when I was 18. Even living in poverty, life was better without my family and without my mother, so I had low contact. But I let her back into my life when I was 28 because she begged me for help. during a job and housing crisis. Over the next 5 years, she ruined my relationship with my boyfriend, killed my pet cats, damaged my health and my job, and forced me to move out of the house and neighborhood where I had been renting. I left for good after that. I regret letting her back into my life. At the same time, I am glad I saw how toxic she was and that it was not all in my head as a child. Seeing how horrible she is as a person made the no-contact decision easy and permanent. It also made it easier to get into therapy. After that, I experienced much greater financial stability, stronger friendships, and better mental and physical health. I traveled more, enjoyed life more, and felt peace. If I had not seen her worst, I would have remained in low contact and felt miserable my whole life. Her bad behavior endangered my life and awakened a primal fight-or-die response that helped me escape. Those 5 years of hell freed me from her forever, like cutting an invisible, rotten umbilical cord. Story 37. Going to college felt totally pointless because I did not get a degree and ended up with enough debt to drown in. But I met the love of my life there and learned a lot about myself, so ultimately it was necessary. Story 38. I worked 2 summers for a small operation making smoked meats. My boss said I was the best employee he ever had and he liked me personally, so the second summer he suggested he wanted to sell the business to me. He lived a modest lifestyle, appearing to make about $80,000, and I did not think that was enough to give up my engineering goals. I later realized he had been misleading. He was very stingy and was making at least 3 times that, probably 4. The business was in a position for expansion as well. I wondered why he was not expanding, but he was making enough. My big regret is not asking how much he was earning when he mentioned trying to sell. Financially, I am worse off, but I am not sure I would be happy in a role where I did not have much to learn. Story 39. Because of a messy divorce and difficult parents, my brother and I did not speak for more than a decade. We have since reconciled and visit occasionally. We live on opposite ends of the country, one in the north and one in the south. We have a decent relationship now. Story 40. My ex was abusive. I was with him off and on for 2.5 years and am still traumatized and dealing with legal matters. I stayed single for 3.5 years after leaving and worked on my self-esteem, which I believe allowed me to stay with him for so long. I became much stronger than before. I am currently living the happiest version of my life. I have a wonderful partner who is definitely the one. Career-wise, I am happy, and I love the home I recently moved into. My life is very good. My ex did not do that for me, but I turned a bad situation into growth and became the best version of myself. I am living my dream life after taking an unexpected path to get here. Story 41. I stopped exercising and playing tennis. I would not have met my husband if I had not given those up and had led the life I did for a couple of years. My then boyfriend said he thought I was hotter than him, so he put me on the Hot or Not website at the time, and my husband messaged me. I did not reply until my first relationship began to break down. I no longer loved him, and I only spoke with my husband. We shared one sweet, short kiss before I ended my relationship with my then boyfriend. Long story short, I would have continued tennis and the gym if I could still have met my husband. He is my world, and I would not change that. Story 42. My mother passed away. I am sad that she is no longer here, but her death forced me to become an adult. Story 43. I found myself in an abusive relationship. Seeing that behavior in a man opened my eyes to the fact that my parents were abusive. I had no reference point. They had kept me very isolated. Seeing it from a man and seeing how my friends reacted when they learned was very eye-opening. Domestic abuse is not just from partners. The whole experience gave me a chance to escape, cut ties, and go no contact. Life is calm and much better now. Story 44. I was destroying my brain with drugs. I have an awesome partner who takes care of me, a college degree, and a decent life. My brain has healed a lot. Story 45. I joined the army. After I left, I found a good job in the medical field, but I never should have had to join. Story 46. It is not that I regret what I have done so much as how I was born. I was born autistic. It has caused and helped me make many social mistakes and blunders, but it has also allowed me to see things from different perspectives and helped others view things differently. I would not change that for anything in the world despite the bullying, misunderstanding, and indifference I have endured. Story 47. I studied what I wanted instead of choosing a field that would lead to a higher-paying job. Story 48. I gave up my hockey scholarships to join the army. I am okay with how everything turned out. Story 49. I remember my younger self. Those flashbacks are painful to recall now. Story 50. I worked too many years in the restaurant industry after finishing my studies and stayed longer than I should have, which delayed the start of my corporate career. If I had switched earlier, I would probably be earning 3 times as much by now. Because of that industry, I developed strong soft skills that give me a significant advantage in the corporate world. Story 51. I hit my all-time rock bottom with depression and was told I either had to willingly go to therapy or be admitted for inpatient treatment. There were no other options. I chose therapy and I'm glad I did. My life progress had been severely stunted from just not planning to be here as long as I have been and from being inconsistent and lazy, but I'm finally getting everything turned around. I regret letting myself get so low that my only options were to go to therapy voluntarily or be admitted involuntarily, but I'm glad it happened. I'm glad I learned how to manage my trauma and depression, and it has given me a backbone. I am not going to settle for less. Story 52. I hated graduate school. It was at a prestigious institution, and it led to a great job. Story 53. I left my narcissistic ex-fiancé. If I had not, I would not be at the amazing veterinary clinic where I am now. I do not wish her anything. Story 54. College. It's paid for, but damn, it's not what I want to do at this point. I'll graduate from these online courses and feel even more motivated to get out of these boring options. Story 55. Arguing on stock boards with bashers and trolls is pointless because they will always exist and it is toxic. Story 56. I regret getting married at 18 and moving across the country to be with him. He was a cheating, lying asshole, but I would not have my daughter otherwise. The condom broke. I took the morning after pill that evening, and I still became pregnant. She's meant to be here. Story 57. I regret not going to college. I missed the college experience my friends had on campus. I moved out of state to attend, but when I arrived I decided not to enroll. That decision likely led to the family I have now, because I might not have stayed with my wife otherwise. We met before I moved. Because I was not on campus, we did long distance until I convinced her to move to my state. We have been married 18 years and together 21. I cannot imagine being married to anyone else. I still plan to get my degree one day, hopefully soon. Story 58. I wish I had had more premarital sex and less religious shame. There are a million ways that might have changed my life. Whether those changes would have been for better or worse, I do not know. I will spend the rest of my life addressing the issues my shame produced. I cannot know whether I could have been happy with a previous girlfriend or whether I would have had a happier life being sexually active. Luckily, I have a wonderful wife and children now, and I would not trade them for anything, so I do not stay up at night thinking about it. Story 59. 3.5 years ago, I was pregnant. It was not planned, and we were not sure what we were going to do. We had no money, no plans, and lived in a crummy flat. While we were still deciding, I miscarried at work in the staff toilets of a primary school. I was wearing a skirt and it was very sudden. I was a mess, physically and mentally. Someone I knew, but not well, arranged cover for both her classes and mine and sat outside the cubicle I was in, passing me paper towels, her own clean clothes, and even a safety pin because she wore a larger size than I did. She did not talk except to ask what I needed and to tell me that my classes were covered. She was so gentle and kind that I broke down again after I had been cleaned up and came out of the stall. We have had a wonderful friendship ever since, and I joke that if I ever have a baby I will name it after her. What she does not know is that I am absolutely not joking. I am 5 weeks pregnant now, and if it works this time the baby's middle name will be hers. Story 60. My aunt died from coronavirus disease 2019, COVID-19. As a result, I unexpectedly inherited a home and some money, which enabled me and my partner to have our first child. something we had previously decided against for financial reasons. This has been a major change in my life's trajectory. Story 61. I worked a job after college that I hated. It gave me a year's salary during the coronavirus disease 2019 pandemic and allowed me to get my current job at a different company that I love. Story 62. I took a leap of faith in 2022. I burned bridges and lost friends, but I came out stronger. In hindsight, I probably could have done just as well if I had watered the grass on my side of the fence. That said, it is impossible to know what would have happened if I had stayed where I was. I regret the way I took the leap more than the leap itself, but I know to my core that I would have regretted not taking it. Story 63. I turned down my dream job more than 20 years ago because of my boyfriend at the time. I had gone to school specifically to get that job. It worked out, I suppose. I have a doctor of philosophy in an adjacent field, and he is no longer in my life. But I absolutely regret it. Story 64. A 5-year toxic relationship that I should have left earlier. But I was constantly guilt-tripped into staying every time I was ready to end it. There was a lot of emotional manipulation and small disagreements that became major arguments. She was cheating on me, and I should have realized it when she started accusing me of cheating out of the blue even though I gave no indication I would. I just did not want to believe it. I now treat the experience as a lesson and wish her well despite everything. I know others have had worse relationships. It does not matter how lonely you feel. It is not worth living with someone who treats you like trash and uses you as a punching bag. Story 65. If I had not been with my ex-husband, I would not have found my soulmate. Story 66. The 8 years I spent with a terrible ex were difficult. I'd be tempted to warn my younger self away from this monumental mistake. But I learned so much about myself and established lifelong boundaries and improvements because of what I experienced. It is truly an example of how what did not kill me made me stronger. Story 67. My last boyfriend broke my heart. I got my close friends back and they have been helping me remodel my house. I am so grateful for them. Story 68. I married a jackass. I wasted about 20 years of my life on that bellend. All that said, my parents needed a caregiver and I needed a new start. I am patiently awaiting the final decree of divorce. Story 69. I was playing baseball when I suffered a partial blowout of my right arm at 17 while throwing to second from the catcher position. I never had it examined and just stopped playing. I probably would still be playing if it had not happened and if I had sought treatment, although I am not certain. I definitely would not have enlisted in the Army if I had continued. I am currently using Veterans Educational Benefits and will graduate next summer at age 38 with a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration in Project and Organizational Leadership. Story 70. I went behind my best friend's back and hooked up with her ex during high school. Our plans revolved around each other, going to college together and sharing our first apartment. If I had gone to college with her, I would not have chosen the college I ultimately attended and moved away from home. Had I not moved, I would not have met my partner, and I likely would have pursued something completely different instead of the program I fell in love with. Story 71. Staying with a terrible boyfriend and not going off to college taught me I needed to figure out why I was willing to compromise myself for someone who didn't care about me. I worked on myself, and now I have the nicest husband in the world. I wouldn't have met him if I had gone to college elsewhere. Story 72. Regret is just charging you tuition for lessons you needed. Story 73. I'm an entrepreneur. Once I had to lay off more than 50% of my staff. However, we found a new way of looking at our data that changed everything for the better. Story 74. My marriage ended terribly, but I got 2 wonderful children from it. Story 75. Because of my savior complex, I learned a really valuable life lesson. Story 76. Keying a girl's car and receiving a misdemeanor for it was difficult at the time, but it changed the trajectory of my life for the better. Story 77. Not asking questions sooner. It took my wife telling me she might be staying with her folks a couple of states away for me to finally see my doctor and ask about attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and appropriate medication. 2 years later, after more struggles than I care to describe, we have moved away from my toxic family. I have a job at an excellent company in a career I love. We have a house in a great community, and things continue to improve. My therapist said dwelling on the what-ifs would kill me, but I cannot help looking back at who I was in high school and college. Potential without drive. I earned about a 3.8 grade point average in high school, dropped out of my first college, worked at the family business to pay my way through a 2-year degree, and stayed there another 10 years out of misguided loyalty. I would not trade my life now, my dogs, my wife, our experiences for anything, but it frustrates me to think how different things might have been if I or someone close to me had asked the question sooner. Story 78. Being homeless was difficult, but it taught me many lessons I would never have learned any other way. Story 79. Losing my house to back taxes after 2 floods within 5 years was hard. I am not sure I would have left the small town in upstate New York for the metropolitan area in North Carolina where I live now if I had still owned that house. I like almost every aspect of my life better now. My environment, the weather, my friends, the entertainment and restaurant options, and the presence of so many universities. Story 80. I tolerated everything my abusive ex-girlfriend did. Now I am more careful, and I will not let any girl disrespect me. Story 81. I went through a divorce, but my new wife is awesome. I have been married to her for 8 years. Story 82. My father's passing in 2007 led me to make massive life changes, which sent me down an entirely new path and resulted in genuine friendships, engagement, an inner peace I never imagined possible, and prosperity I never dreamed I could achieve. I have often wondered how my life might have gone if that had never happened. Frankly, it is hard to admit, but I probably would have stayed in my small town with few job opportunities, done very little with my life, and continued to suffer from mental health problems, isolation, loneliness, and lack of motivation because I would not have left my father. It is not easy to admit that I found personal growth and happiness only because the most important person in my life died. Story 83. I quit high school and did not obtain my General Educational Development Certificate until years later. Story 84. Losing my wife. I was fully unmade 6 years ago when she passed. It was a bitter experience, but I am much more capable, stronger, and more patient than I was before. Part of me hates that I was not the stronger version of myself when she needed me. Story 85. I regret how much I drank in college and during the pandemic and how limited my social life became as a result. I found the strength to get sober and made great friends along the way. I realized how much my drinking had held back my social life, and after getting sober I worked hard to pursue more social opportunities and have met many wonderful people. Story 86. I shouldn't have taken the job. I knew the place was known for drugs. I hadn't relapsed in over a year. Then, 3 months ago, I did. Deep down, I think I wanted to relapse. The terror of that time and what I went through forced me to heal much of the grief I had been drowning in. Even with the severe post-traumatic stress disorder I suffer from due to the abusive relationship that my addiction trapped me in, I am better off because of the relapse. I am stronger now. I want to be alive. I had only been surviving in my grief, but I believe that in time I will be able to live again. Story 87. Failing to listen to my pain and to advocate for myself led to a lot of suffering when I could have been treated 10 years ago. But if my condition had not put my life on hold, I never would have met the love of my life. Story 88. I should have maxed out a Roth individual retirement account every year starting at 19. Imagine more than 30 years of compounding stock market returns from doing nothing. Story 89. I stayed with my abusive first husband. I wish I could go back in time and shake myself for all the forgiveness I gave him. Story 90. I regretted becoming a lawyer because it meant I had to work as one. Eventually, I took a job as a law librarian in a courthouse, which led to a position as a public librarian. Now I run a co-working space for startups in the library. Story 91. Dating my red flag starter pack. Character development unlocked. Story 92. I did not receive the urgent care I needed during the delivery of my son. I was left in agony for 72 hours of labor until someone finally discovered my waters had broken weeks earlier and I needed an emergency cesarean section. My son spent 4 days in the special care baby unit. I now have complex post-traumatic stress disorder from that, even 16 years on, My child is happy, healthy, and thriving. I am not. Story 93, marrying my ex-husband. Without that mistake, I would never have started the career I have had for 20 years, met my current husband, had my baby, or bought my house. The list goes on. I have my alcoholic, abusive ex-husband to thank for my very happy and peaceful life. Story 94. I met my first husband when I was young. The marriage was awful and abusive and nearly broke me. We stayed together for our child until I could no longer ignore the cheating and being used and abused. After I divorced and became a single mother, I met my husband, now my partner of 32 years. He truly loves me. He is kind, considerate, hardworking, and the best life partner I can imagine, my lover, and my best friend. I would never have met him if my first husband and I had not moved to the town we have lived in for 40 years. As bad as the first marriage was, I am thankful because my life would not be what it is today, wonderful and filled with happiness. You can regret past mistakes, but you cannot undo them, so there is no point in dwelling on the past. Sometimes a bad past can be a blessing. Story 95. After going through an abusive relationship, I am now a strong, independent woman. No man will ever have that power over me again. Story 96. I should not have taken her back after she slept with my roommate, who was also my best friend, while we were on a break. The relationship ended 5 years later. That was a very low point in my life, but leaving was the best thing for me. Story 97. Maybe I don't understand the question, but 21 years ago my brother sat down in front of a Kmart and put a shotgun in his mouth. That single moment propelled me through adulthood to a place I often look around and think I have no business being in. Maybe I was running away from that moment. I don't know. Story 98. I went to a military university. I was told it would help me make lifelong friends. I made some friends, but I have not kept up with them. Trauma bonding is not true friendship. It was supposed to help me get my foot in the door and build a network. It did not. It was supposed to make me more disciplined. It only made me chase impulses and seek pleasure as an escape. It worsened my anxiety, led to depression, and resulted in addiction to nicotine and caffeine, and it caused a drinking problem. I have been to multiple therapists, and it is a big part of who I am now. I would not be the same person I am today, but I do not know that I want to be this person anymore. I did learn how to endure large organizations. It taught me to ask how high when told to jump. It also helped me learn to stand up straight, even though the rest of it made my body image issues worse than they already were. Military schools are abuse factories. Do not let a loved one go. Story 99. Dropping out of high school my senior year and getting a general educational development certificate pushed me to make some choices. I ended up joining the Coast Guard, which paid for my undergraduate degree and then allowed me to go to graduate school. Had I graduated, I would probably have gone to community college locally, transferred to the nearby state university, taken a state job, and stayed stuck in my hometown. I still regret not walking across the stage in high school. Story 100. Anything I wasted emotional energy regretting will go on that list. My dating choices, or more frequently my lack of courage to ask people out, certainly colored other aspects of my life. Time I spent on things I no longer believe in, jumping from major to major, and the time I did not spend preparing to get into a graduate program would each have vastly changed who I am and where I am now. Story 101. My entire childhood was like that. If you want an action I directly caused, it would be the fights I started or the dates I went on in middle school. By then it was really obvious I came from a violent home, and it definitely affected how I talked to and treated people in public. I was also very into horror and creepypasta and had severe anger issues. Story 102. Having to take my family to court and losing them was difficult. Winning improved my life, but it broke my heart. They were abusive and I was raised in a cult. Story 103. My first serious relationship ended poorly. Because of it, I learned that you never have to settle. You are worth more than that. Story 104. I studied abroad and did not stay after I finished school. If I had stayed, I probably would not have met my wife. The tumor on my abdomen would still be there, or I might not be here at all. Story 105. Finding out my best friends were not really my friends made me stronger and opened many opportunities after I got away from them. But I'm traumatized. Story 106. I went to college in my hometown. It was the best college in the state, so it made sense academically, but I think it held me back in other ways. Story 107. I was naive and fell for a man much older than me. He was 38 and I was 20. I went through terrible things, but I would not trade the experience because he showed me how cruel the world can be and removed the blindfold from my eyes. I used to live in a fairy tale. For example, he invited me to eat at a casino for our first meeting. In hindsight, my ignorance was astonishing. Story 108. I broke up with my first girlfriend, who I loved very much. We seemed perfect for each other, but I felt I could not provide for her and that our experiences were not enough to commit. More than 20 years and many relationships later, I have a wonderful son. Story 109. I had a miscarriage that unearthed a large rift of unprocessed issues in my marriage. My husband initiated a separation and no contact because things became so bad. At the time, I did not think I would make it through the miscarriage without him, but I ended up leaning on my family and myself and realized I was severely codependent. The experience forced me to grieve, heal, and become strong in a short time. My marriage is flourishing now, and I have a newfound love for life that I had never experienced. There is no baby yet, but without all of this, I would have remained the miserable person I had been. Story 110. I kind of regret going to college, but I'm happy that it happened. It taught me a lot, which I just can't use yet, and it caused so much mental turmoil that I still struggle with memory from the stress, anxiety, and sleep deprivation. But I did it. I graduated and I have a degree. I believe I am the first in my family to hold a degree. I think I am correct about that. It is an Associate of Science from a community college, and it is one of my greatest achievements so far. It made me feel amazingly smart for once. I came close to quitting, but I stuck it out. It taught me that I enjoy studying topics I am interested in, and it taught me how to study. Story 111. I am at a low point in my life right now after I confronted my girlfriend for cheating on me. It was hard, but I am glad I confronted her when I did because otherwise our relationship would have spiraled out of control. Story 112. I regret not coming out earlier, which contributed to my flunking out of college. However, those experiences led me to where I am decades later as a successful professional. Story 113. I regret falling in love with a man I never dated and who, in hindsight, never cared about me. I met him during a dead-end internship at the end of college while I was working a dead-end retail job I had held for years. After I became infatuated, I started working on myself and taking my life more seriously. I learned a lot through self-improvement, which eventually helped me leave those low-paying jobs, get a better-paying position, pay off my debt, and move out of my toxic family's house to live on my own in New York City, something I had always dreamed of. I feel like if I had never met him, I would not be where I am now, but I still feel a great deal of sadness and embarrassment when I remember how obsessed I was, especially since he used me for his own gain and never cared about me. Story 114. I regret failing my first big job interview. It was crushing at the time, but it motivated me to improve and land an even better position later. Story 115. I have thought about this. My grandmother died at the age of 31. I never met her. She died 2 years before my mother gave birth to me. My mother was only 17. Had the trauma of seeing my grandmother die of a heart attack at such a young age in front of my mother not occurred, I would not be here today. Through therapy, I learned that such an event can push a person into the arms of another, and she found solace as a teenager with my biological father. Everything happens for a reason. Story 116. Having sex. I wouldn't have my 2 little babies, but honestly I know they deserve so much better than I am as a mother. That is the root of most of my problems. Story 117. If it's a place, I don't want to be here anymore. One choice influenced everything. First, something was beyond my control. Then there was a choice. Life itself is fine. Relationships are fine. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.